This lesson is called Understanding Integers, and it's going to go with Unit 3, Learning Target 1. You're going to want to make sure that you pick up the fill-in-the-blank notes from Mrs. Weeks so that you can follow along. So go ahead and pause me, get your notes, and when you're ready, restart. Integers are a set of whole numbers and their opposites. Whole numbers greater than 0 are called positive integers. Whole numbers less than 0 are called negative integers. The integer 0 is neither positive nor negative and has no sign. When we're dealing with integers, number lines really come in handy. This one right here, this is a horizontal number line, and this one is a vertical number line. It doesn't really matter if you're using a horizontal or a vertical, but you do need to know where 0 is. So I usually place 0 somewhere in the center on my horizontal, somewhere in the center on my vertical. Now on my horizontal number line, I would start at 0 and I would count up for my positive numbers, and I would count backwards for my negative numbers. On my vertical number line, as I'm counting up, just as if this was a thermometer, my positives count up, positives, and my negatives would count backwards, counting down. Those are my negatives. For this learning target, you will be asked to write an integer for a situation. And so there's going to be 2 steps to this. Step 1, you have to decide if your integer will be positive or negative. And then step 2, determine the numerical part of your answer. So you're going to want to look for some cue words when you're writing an integer for a situation to help you determine if you have a positive integer or a negative integer. So let's start brainstorming some words that might signal positive integers. Things like above, or a gain, or a deposit. Earning money would be positive. Forward or up. Those are all words that cue you to know that you have a positive integer. Of course, that is not a full list, but it's a good start. Now let's talk about words that signal a negative integer. Instead of above, we would have below, would signal a negative integer, as well as a loss. Or if I withdraw money from my bank account, or I owe someone money, or I move backward or down. Again, that's not a comprehensive list, but it's a good list to get you started. Now it's time for us to practice this. We're going to write an integer to represent each of these situations. Remember, there are 2 steps to this. We need to figure out the sign. Is it going to be a positive integer or a negative integer? What's the number part? And then we're going to want to label our answer. So we're going to work through the first one together, and then I'm going to have you pause and work through the other ones, checking with me after you've done them to make sure you're right. So the first one says 10 degrees above 0. So I believe that that's going to be a positive. My number part is 10, and then I want to label it degrees. I have just written an integer for this situation. Go ahead and pause me, do the next 3, and when you're ready, come back and check. All right, so let's check these. We have a loss. I feel a loss is a negative integer. 16 is my numerical part, and my label is dollars. The next one, I have a gain. That's positive. My number part is a 5, and my label is points. And for our last one, backward is negative. My numerical part is 8, and my label is steps. Make sure if you did not have the right answer that you fix them in your notebook. All right, so we're back to our fill-in-the-blank notes, talking about what are additive inverses. Go ahead and fill in the blanks if you think you know them. Pause me, give yourself a chance to think, and then come back and check. Time to check. 2 integers are additive inverses, or opposites, if they are each the same distance away from 0, but on opposite sides of the number line. When you add 2 inverses together, the sum will always be 0. All right, so we want to find the additive inverse of each integer. We have both a horizontal and a vertical number line that we're going to practice with. So I think we're going to start with our horizontal number line. We're going to put the number 0 in there. Our first problem is negative 12. So if I start at 0 and I count backwards, negative 12 is about right here. Now I am looking for an integer that is the same distance from 0, but on the other side of the number line. So that means that I would come, instead of starting at 0 and moving to the left, I'm going to start at 0 and move to the right, 12 spaces. The additive inverse of negative 12 is positive 12. If I used a vertical number line for positive 21 and trying to find my additive inverse, I would do the same thing. I would find 0. And in this case, I'm going to move up to positive 21. Now I want the additive inverse, which means I need the number that is the same distance from 0, but on the other side of the number line. So instead of starting at 0 and moving up 21, I'm going to start at 0 and move down 21. And my additive inverse of positive 21 is negative 21. Go ahead and pause me and work the next 2 problems in your notebook. Come back when you're ready to check. All right, so we are ready to check the additive inverse of negative 17 is positive 17. The additive inverse of positive 9 is negative 9. All right, time to go back into your notes. Pause me, fill in the blanks for absolute value. When you're ready, go ahead and start me again for checking. The absolute value of a number indicates the distance from the number to 0. This distance is always positive because distance cannot be negative. The sign for absolute value is here. All right, so we are going to find the absolute value for each integer. We're going to follow the same couple of steps. We have both a horizontal and a vertical number line to work with. So let's start with this problem. We want the absolute value of negative 7. So I'm going to go ahead and find 0. I'm going to find where negative 7 is. So I'm going to start at 0 and count backwards. Negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Negative 7 is about right here. And now I want to know how far is it from negative 7 to 0. If I counted my spaces, there are 7 spaces. So negative 7 is 7 spaces from 0. Therefore, the absolute value of negative 7 is 7. Let's try this one next. We're going to work on a vertical number line on this one. I'm going to find 0. I'm going to find positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice I'm counting up. There is positive 4. And absolute value deals with the distance positive 4 is from 0. So positive 4 to 0 is 4 spaces. So the absolute value of positive 4 is 4. Go ahead and pause. Go ahead and solve the next two problems, and when you're ready, come back and check with me. All right, the absolute value of negative 8. Negative 8 is 8 spaces from 0, so the answer is 8. The absolute value of positive 2. 2 is 2 spaces from 0, so the absolute value of 2 is 2. All right, it is time for your exit ticket. On a piece of paper that you are going to hand in, I would like you to answer these 5 questions. Make sure your name is on it and turn it into the folder.